As God reveals himself throughout Scripture, he's very intentional and purposeful with wilderness seasons to develop trust and to mature love. One place I never noticed that was in the Song of Songs, but I want to encourage you to take a closer look at it. I never had a grid for that book. But there's this amazing storyline in it of the story of Jesus pursuing a believer with his amazing love, and the believer's love slowly going from kind of immature and weak and faltering and unsteady, being challenged out of her comfort zone, to a love that really passionately pursues Jesus, and her character gets transformed by the love of Jesus, and she grows into this mature lover of Jesus. And in the midst of that storyline, there's a place where her love gets tested in Song of Songs chapter 5. Let's look at it just a second. Jesus tests her love this is the second time in the book, to call her out from this comfortable place of knowing his love and relaxing and knowing how amazing he is, just enjoying his presence and his love. And he tries to knock on the window and call her out and say, come with me to the mountains. I want to adventure together. I want to show you things. I want to do things with you. I want to partner with you in my kingdom. And she's kind of disturbed the first time he calls her out and says like, well, what, I mean, why? You go do that stuff. I'll just stay here and enjoy your love, when you're here. But her love grows up, and eventually in chapter 5, she becomes willing to follow him outside of the room and follow him into the unknown. And at first in chapter 5, verse 6, she gets up to open the door and he's not there. All of a sudden, she doesn't feel his presence. She didn't feel his warm embrace. She didn't see him at that moment. And he withdrew his presence with her. And so some people say, man, this is dry. This feels like the wilderness. I don't feel God. I don't feel his presence. But Jesus says, just come a little further. You're going to discover me. I'm right here. Can you just trust in my faithfulness? Can you just trust me a little bit further? Will you pursue me a little bit further? Will you trust I'm going to show up for you? And so she passes that test in her love. She matures to that point, and she comes out. She leaves the bedroom and she goes out to follow Jesus in the mountains and in the gardens and all over the place. And then right after that verse, chapter 5, verse 7, she gets tested in another way. She gets persecuted. She gets misunderstood by the watchman on the wall, who showed up only one other time, I think, in the story. And the other time they were kind of benign. They didn't hurt anything. But they're like the church leaders, the believers with some level of authority in her life. And they're the watchmen on the wall. And in this verse it says, the watchmen find her in her pursuit of Jesus and they beat her. And they took away her veil. They took away her spiritual covering. Maybe your ministry disappeared as you're pursuing Jesus. You say, what? Did I do something wrong? And in the case of this believer, no, she didn't do anything wrong. She was pursuing Jesus, and this testing came. Will you still love me, even if you're misunderstood? Will you still love me, even if the other believers don't get it and they might even persecute you, or whatever kind of suffering you go through? Will you still love me? Will you still pursue me? Am I worth it? Is my love worth it to you? And she passes that test, and she matures in love, and then she finds Jesus and she encounters his presence again, and he's like, your love overwhelms me. And I just want to say to you, as a believer in Jesus, that he is overwhelmed by your love. And if you are willing to trust his faithfulness through the wilderness and through the desert, he is overwhelmed by your love. And it's a precious gift to him that if you're willing to endure suffering, endure that dry period, and trust in his love because he's worth it. And then he just loves that. And he wants to grow up our love to that the place where His love is made manifest in our hearts and in our lives. And just like His love was so intense, He was willing to suffer to the point of death to demonstrate His love. And He wants to make that kind of love, that reflection of Him in our lives. So if you're in that dry spot, in a hard spot, enduring persecution or wilderness, I just want to say, keep going and chase after your bridegroom king as He chased after you.